Star Wars Resistance has ended after only 2 seasons. I've had a lot of questions from people about whether or not it was worth watching. People felt it was too childish, too Disney. I've heard a lot of complaints like that. I watched every episode every week as it came out, so here are my thoughts on the series as a whole. Star Wars Resistance is absolutely aimed at a young audience. The first season especially really leans into the idea that Kaz, the protagonist, is a clumsy goofball when he's not in the cockpit. So I do understand people having some misgivings after watching the first couple episodes. But I would argue that the first season of Resistance is no more silly than the first seasons of the Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels. I think people tend to look back at those shows and then compare their best episodes, many of which happened later on in their runs, to the earliest episodes of Resistance. But don't forget that the Clone Wars and Rebels both had their fair share of silly episodes like Bomb Bad Jedi or Fighter Flight. I actually do believe Star Wars Resistance had a more even and consistent first season than either of the other 2 animated shows. That said, I also don't think it ever reached any of the very high highs of the Clone Wars or Rebels. I think all 3 series were meant to grow up with their audience as they went on. The Clone Wars definitely got more intense as the seasons continued. Star Wars Rebels really hit its stride at the end of Season 2 and never let up. There were still some very good episodes in Star Wars Resistance's second season, but I found it to be a little frustrating. The end of the first season changed a lot for our characters, most notably with Tam joining the First Order. That shocked and excited me, and then the second season didn't spend as much time as I would have preferred on that development. Tam was in about half the episodes, and I felt like there was a lot more, I kinda hate the word filler, but I don't know what else to call an episode like the Vox Vortex 5000. So Star Wars Resistance was kind of up and down for me. It is my least favorite of the 3 animated series, but I wonder if it had more seasons, if it could have continued to grow on me. And that brings me to the question of whether or not this was always planned to be a 2-season show, or if it was canceled, or what. I was definitely surprised to hear its second season would be its last, but the series finale did feel kind of perfect to me. I genuinely loved it. Everything felt like it had ended in a satisfying way, so I could see that being the planned conclusion from the start, but it also doesn't have to be a definitive period on that sentence. Right now I'm leaning towards this show just kind of being an interim series to have on while the rumored Star Wars Rebels sequel was being developed. I feel like I'm sounding very lukewarm on Resistance, even though I enjoyed it far more than I didn't, so I want to really dig into some of the show's strengths. I know Kaz is one of the reasons people have trouble investing in the series, but I love his character. People get upset that he's supposed to be a New Republic pilot, but he's so goofy and clumsy. I get that, but remember, he's meant to be the protagonist of a kids show. Kids are supposed to be able to see themselves and Kaz and relate to his struggles. He is the Ahsoka or Ezra of this show, and I think the issue is just that Kaz is much older than they were at the start. Ahsoka and Ezra were very young when their series began, and we watched them grow up. Kaz is already an adult, so I do see the differences there, but getting past his age, he serves the same purpose, and you can clearly see Kaz's development over the course of the series. He has a good arc of getting outside his comfort zone to learn and master new skills, all of which become important to the story. But I also appreciate that whenever he's flying, he gets to show off and be the best. He's never treated like a fool when he's in the cockpit. Then we have Tam, who I think had the best arc in the series. When she goes over to the First Order, it's a shocking moment, but I also completely understood why she did it. She's been lied to by her friends, she's seen Kaz get special treatment from her father figure, and then the First Order comes along with a smile, offering her everything she's ever wanted. Like I said earlier, I think spending more time with her in the second season would have been good, because she was the most compelling part of the show. But her conclusion at the end of the series was so well done, and got me misty-eyed more than once. Even the side characters had some really nice background arcs going on. The aces in the second season have to learn how to become a fighter squadron to defend the Colossus. At the start, they're terrible because they're just racers, but if you pay attention, you can see this progression where they learn to work together, and they go from barely scraping by to holding their own against the Guavian Death Gang to finally, competently defending their home from First Order pilots. Hype Phazon serves as kind of the most prominent face of the squadron, and he gets a little arc of his own. He starts the series with a massive ego, taking all the glory he can while shifting blame away. At the end, he's still a little cocky, but he's a team player and a good wingmate, and when a mission goes very wrong, he sees how his own flaws affect the team. I think Star Wars Resistance absolutely nailed the characters of this show. The personal story is pretty much perfect, but I do wish it spent a little more time connecting with the larger universe. The first season occasionally had Poe show up and we got to see the development of Starkiller Base. We got new revelations about the larger story sprinkled throughout the season. The second season kind of abandons that. We see Dakar early on, and from that point forward, I kind of expected we would eventually have the Colossus join up with the rest of the Resistance, but then that never happened. I wish we got just a little bit about our main characters joining the larger fight, but that leads me to what I think the show is ultimately about. There's a lot of talk in The Last Jedi and plenty of other stories about the spark of the Resistance or the Rebellion or whatever you want to call it. I believe that spark is simply an example to live up to. Sometimes people need a powerful moment of inspiration to join the fight against evil. Luke Skywalker provided that at the end of The Last Jedi, and in The Rise of Skywalker we see a fleet of 14,000 ships appear at the Battle of Exegol. One of my favorite lines in that movie is that it's just people. In the original trilogy, it's always the Rebel Alliance fighting by themselves to save the galaxy, but this time around, the galaxy as a whole rises up to save itself. They're not going to let other people fight their battles anymore. That's what the spark of Resistance is, and Resistance the show illustrates it very well on a smaller scale for a younger audience. The whole series, but the second season especially, is about this platform full of mostly civilians who are being chased by the First Order. They let the Aces and Kaz fight their battles, and all the while they're just wishing things could go back to normal. And in the finale, they realize maybe things could go back to normal if they helped, and it takes a message of self-sacrifice from Kaz and Tam for them to spring into action. That's what I think Star Wars Resistance is about, and I do love that message. Was Star Wars Resistance perfect? No, but I thought it had some great and very Star Wars-y themes, and I came to love most of the characters. If you never gave it a chance, I would encourage you to give it a shot with an open mind. The whole series will be available on Disney Plus on February 25th, and with only 50 episodes, you can fly through it. But that's it for today. Let me know what you thought of Resistance in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.